Start streaming button has been hit, so that means that it's starting to load. I'm going to go grab it.
Is it live?
It says we're live, and
Well,
yes,
then we're probably live. It's probably a good opportunity to notify us that we are live.
we are
If
now
you,
live.
you
Yes,
see a live button.
yes,
Yeah? Okay, we're
yes.
good. We're good to go. You sure? I mean, you're our tech guru.
Hey, I'm just trying to fake it as much as everybody else is. So, and also I'm trying to
Ouch.
multitask at the moment because I'm trying to grab it so I can go share it and make sure everyone
You
who
should
wants to
you
hear us
should
do
flip it.
this,
You should smack it, and then
rub
you
it
should rub it
down, say
down.
"Oh no."
Oh no. Yeah.
So, yes, we are live, and I'm sharing it now.
Okay. Well, while you're sharing it, let's explain to people what we're doing. Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this very episode, we are reviewing Cherry, The Vigil, and I Care a Lot. We're going to revisit the Lord of the Rings re-release on IMAX, and our topic this week is great movie plots that just didn't work. Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today, my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, Aaron, how you doing tonight?
Tired.
Yeah, I know what that means.
Amanda Sink.
Hello, hello.
Hey, yeah, I just got
Hi.
back from my first road trip in over a year, I think. I mean, real road trip, like I've gone camping, but my first went into a different city and had to deal with people. It was odd. I saw my son for his birthday and did some axe throwing, and that was interesting.
Don't talk about this too much. You might get canceled.
Axe throwing?
Traveling. People have opinions.
They
You
might.
never know.
People freak out. I wore a mask the whole time. I did. I wore a mask the whole time. Although we did witness a bar location that was a distance from us where nobody was partaking in the whole mask thing. They were just, they weren't even 6 inches apart.
So it was the orgy bar.
No, I mean, it was just a normal bar, man. I don't know if, I mean, you're young. Yeah, back in the old days when people went to the bars, what they would do is they
Oh,
would
yeah, I'm that
sit
young.
around and they
I'm
would
less
talk.
than a year old.
Yeah, you're an infant. So young.
Wow. Okay, so somebody else can come wipe my ass then.
Yep.
We're all just waiting for those times where somebody's gonna go be wiping our asses for us. I think.
I mean, that's the beginning and the end of life, so.
I'm game. It's kind of a hassle. I don't really like to deal with it.
So you guys are lucky. You don't have to worry about the complexities of going to the bathroom like women do.
I'm
It's
pretty
problematic.
sure it's complex for everybody, and we should get away from this topic as soon as humanly possible. Let's go back to we were throwing axes like Vikings, and that was a cool thing I've never done before. Amanda, I know you have done it before,
Yes, it's
right?
so much fun. It's so much fun.
John, have you ever done axe throwing?
No, I'm not a lot of sharp implements since the incident.
The incident?
The incident.
We don't want to know what that is because it's.
I mean,
probably
I
a
kind of
crime.
want to know.
No.
Do you want to tell people?
He had a sharp object and something went bad. I definitely want the story.
That's
You
for
really
another
just don't
day,
understand
another time.
jokes.
That's for the $50 tier in
Patreon.
Patreon.
Nice.
That's patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider.
Anyway, what I found out was to do axe throwing, you have to have depth perception, which is something that I struggle with. It's why I can't play softball. My buddy Dennis for years would always not invite me to play when he needed a sub because I couldn't catch the ball. That's why I don't have depth perception. So same thing with an axe. I kind of throw it off a little bit every time. So he kicked my ass.
Wait a minute. Why don't you have depth perception?
I don't know. Why don't you call my eye doctor and ask her?
Do you have like a lazy eye?
No, I just have.
You have a
I-
lazy eye.
I just don't have great depth perception. I have it. It's just not. It's not completely accurate.
This
Nothing wrong
was
with
just a roundabout way for him to say that he got his butt kicked.
Yeah, because I'm. Let's why not brag about getting your ass handed to you? That's a
No,
good-
but
do
you
you like-
made some excuses to beef it up, like, oh well,
an excuse.
I-
That's why I can't see. it.
My depth perception isn't great, so this is gonna take away from the fact that I got my butt beat.
Do you randomly walk into walls without because you can't tell how far they are from you?
It's not
Like
that
a little
bad.
puppy.
It's not that bad. It's you misgauge how objects in mirror are closer than they appear is what a lot of it is. If it's like trying to catch a ball, I almost can never do it. Unless it's coming really slow. really
just in the
slow.
rear view mirror.
You know what? Let's do our news roundup. Let's get to that because I don't even know why I shared this story.
I was going to ask
too.
you if you've seen the Ryan Reynolds video of him axe throwing, and he ends up putting Hugh Jackman's face at the end, which is funny if you followed their
No, I
their
haven't seen that. Well, I know
relationship
they're rivals,
throughout
but
history. Yeah,
that's pretty fantastic.
it's hilarious.
All right. Well, on our news roundup this week, the Muppets dropped on Disney Plus, and were promptly slapped with a disclaimer for the TV show. So every time you watch an episode, it tells you to be mindful of, these are old depictions and da 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 da. Sasha Calle was cast as Supergirl for the upcoming Flash movie, first Latina, which is fantastic. DC's The Blue Beetle is getting its own movie. Easy Rollins is a character I'm a big fan of from the books. It's a slick PI. He's a slick PI in 1950s LA that was notably played by Denzel Washington in Devil in a Blue Dress, if you ever saw that movie. It's getting a new series through Amblin Entertainment. Disney and Marvel finally have the rights back to Jessica Jones and the Punisher from Netflix. They said, give it back to us. Speaking of Netflix, Tim Burton is heading up an Addams Family spinoff focused on Wednesday Addams for Netflix. Only way I'm watching that is if Christina Ricci plays Morticia. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, Burton. And New York City movie theaters can finally reopen to limited capacity on March 5th, which is one of the biggest markets in the country. So, that's awesome. Of all that, what are you excited about? Let's just say the movie theaters.
I'm actually super excited about seeing the Blue Beetle on the big screen, and it's a Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, which is awesome.
What does any of this mean? I don't speak, John.
All right, so Blue Beetle's been around forever. The second there's been three Blue Beetles. One of them, the first one took his power from the Scarab, which I'll get into the Scarab in a second. That was his last name is Garrett, and then Ted Cord took over as the Blue Beetle, but he never took his power from the Scarab. He was more of an inventor, but he had the Scarab. He lost the Scarab. It got thrown into the ether and then landed in Texas, and a kid named Jaime Reyes found it.
Sounds like some fantastic lore. All right. What does the Blue Beetle do? Run around, try not to get squashed? What?
So the Jaime Reyes version of the Blue Beetle is essentially, now my background with it is through a couple of cartoons and a little bit of the comics. This character is the Scarab itself is something that's sent to Earth from space, from an alien race, and it's here to basically start an alien invasion on the continent. But because it ends up forming a bond with Jaime Reyes, it turns him into this weapon. Now that weapon is kind of like a mixture of like what you'll see is sort of like Shazam meets Iron Man, because you have this phenomenal cosmic powers in an adaptive, ever-changing suit of armor, and you can have a kid playing the main character.
Okay, so it's a superhero I'm not familiar with. So this is like a very third tier DC superhero, fourth tier. Where are we at with this?
I would say third tier is pretty accurate. He's becoming more popular now because of the way they're taking the character with the Jaime Reyes route, and this is kind of like it's kind of like DC's Miles Morales, essentially, is what they did with this character.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Well, I'm pretty stoked for Easy Rollins. I think I said that, but I'm a big fan of those books. It's just a PI in the 50s, and he's going to deal with racial inequality and some other issues, as well as try to solve some crimes. And I'm a big fan of any detective series. And Devil in a Blue Dress is a really good movie if you haven't seen it. Don Cheadle's in it too.
But also take a moment to get excited about Marvel and The Punisher and Jessica Jones as a possible return.
You think?
I better get a Punisher return.
Or what,
with
Amanda?
John Bernthal.
What?
Or I'm going to go Punisher on somebody at the Marvel
I don't
place.
think they're that worried about it. I think they got enough security to keep you out.
Come on, Disney. No, see, I'll just bat my pretty eyelash extensions that I got, and they'll be like, oh, okay, you can come in, and I'll have a conversation.
But while I love Bernthal's Punisher, like that's a fantastic show, I think.
He's so amazing.
I can't see them, the Marvel of today, doing anything remotely close to what Netflix did with Punisher. I just can't see it.
I mean, you say that, but Disney is also giving a chance to Deadpool. Disney and Marvel are giving a chance to Deadpool as like the Deadpool
That's
we
a
know him to be.
fluke. I mean, they could put the Punisher in Deadpool. That would work. I mean, it would make sense. That could work.
They could still continue with the show. I'm just
I-
to your point that
I can't see
I
them.
get that it's Netflix went very dark and brutal and oh god, it was amazing. I don't think that I'm sure there's a way for that to still exist because they know that
Just
there's
tone
money
down.
in that.
They'll just tone it way down.
No, I don't want them to tone it down. And I think
no
there's
way. There's like scenes where he's punching a guy's face until the face is gone. That's
okay,
not
but
gonna
if
happen
Deadpool's gonna
in Disney
happen,
Plus.
then there's a chance it could still happen. It'll probably just air on Hulu.
I'm not convinced Deadpool is gonna be on. I mean, yeah, that's supposed to come, but I'm just not convinced it's not gonna be neutered in some way. Disney just has a knack for.
I don't know that
Mhm.
Ryan Reynolds would continue and get everybody hyped up if he didn't still have the character he knows it to be. And he has influence in that too, which gives me hope. And so all of that hope, if you want to try to take it away from me, you can't,
I'm
Aaron.
not trying to take it
You
away from you.
can't.
I want
You
to see
can't touch
Bernthal.
the John Bernthal Punisher love that I have and the hope that I have
I
for
think-
the resurrection.
I think Bernthal's fantastic. I just don't know if they will be able to do that in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, they could probably just get. I mean, he's such a down and dirty in that show. Don't get me wrong, Punisher's a down and dirty character, but it was so violent. I mean, really violent.
But money. So maybe.
Maybe
Well-
it's not like Disney's hurting for money. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
they're
John,
not
sorry.
really hurting that much for money, and it's I just rewatched Endgame, and the whole scene where they lop off Thanos' head. Spoilers. That was even very neutered as far as the scene's concerned.
Yeah,
But that was intended to be for families too. Punisher is not. Punisher has never been a family-oriented film or show
fair.
in either.
But Marvel also hasn't had the rights to it.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that's true. No, that's true. I'm just saying the possibility exists.
It
Like,
exists. But you know what? You know what it's going to be, though, man. This is what it's going to be. This is what I picture, anyway. I'm sorry, it's not definitive. It's going to be if they keep Bernthal, which they should, because he was great. It's going to be him. He's going to put his thumbs on some dude's eyes, and they're going to cut away, and you're going to hear that guy screaming, and you're going to hear dub dialogue where it's like, "Oh no, my eyes! Ow! Ow!" And then you show Bernthal's face, and then maybe you get some blood splatter, but that's the maximum I think Disney lets happen.
Or he's sitting there blasting away at people on the street, and they're all supposed to be the bad guys, but you keep on seeing the exact same guy, or just guy wearing like a full helmet, completely in body armor, so you can't see any sort of features that is a person. That same person over
No
and over
blood.
and over again gets blasted away.
Yeah, it's like stormtroopers everywhere.
Yep, pretty much.
John, you mentioned that Disney's not hurting for money. Disney has not been hurting for money in a long time, but they still continue to do stuff that they know is going to generate more money because that's who Disney is. They
Yeah.
just acquired another Canadian version of Hulu and dropped that into their Disney Plus. So I don't think that there's anything outside the scope of their willingness to consider if it means more money.
No,
And those properties do mean more money because people were pissed when Netflix announced this, the ending of the shows. So I think if the revival came back, they would get a lot of Netflix subscribers that they don't currently have. And I believe there are plenty.
I admire your drive and your appreciation for this. I really
Don't take this
really
away
do.
from me just because I'm a woman.
No, I
What?
You
I'm
can't
sorry,
come
what did
back
you
from
do?
this. Now that I said that, you can't come back from it. It's just
I admire your drive and appreciation for everything you're saying. Like it is very heartwarming to me as someone who loves comics to see somebody like you decide comics are cool. The thing is though is that Marvel doesn't have a really good track record with going dark. Look at what it did with the Hulu show that it did have. It's already canceled the dark Hulu show, which was
Hailstrom?
Yeah, Hellstrom. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have a really good track record with it because they're trying so hard to walk the line of creating something that's dark but safe, that seeing Punisher come back as dark but safe will hurt the story and hurt the show. We're not convinced that we're going to see a dark but safe Deadpool. It's possible because Ryan Reynolds is still at the center of it, and it's possible that Ryan Reynolds could still do his song and dance routine without the amount of blood that he likes to do it with as Deadpool. It's possible, but we haven't seen it yet. And I admire your hope and your appreciation and your drive to make this happen, just strictly off of a sheer force of will. But it's one of those wait and see things for me.
This just felt like what somebody has when somebody has a conversation with you about how you're so smart and you're so wonderful, but you didn't get the job. Just so you know, that's what this conversation felt like to me. Where the
Well,
sad news was just like buried and
you should
sandwiched
be
in the
used
middle.
to this then. I feel like it should be. You should be used to it.
Me?
Sorry,
No,
you don't
good.
have enough testosterone for this job. It's okay.
Oh,
Wow.
burn. John,
Wow.
I will say in rebuttal
Nice
rebuke.
way to throw it back, though. Good job. I tried to put you in a hole and you came right back out of it. Good job.
In rebuke to that, though, there is nothing definitive in either way.
No, there isn't.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
You're right. And I'm not saying that 100% I know what's going to happen or I believe it's going to happen.
I
I'm
hope
just
not,
hopeful
'cause
it
That
will.
would be a lie.
And Deadpool gives me hope. You know, if we just continue, I think, to put a little pressure on what we want, consumers drive the industry. Consumers drive entertainment at this point. So if we continue to say, hey man, I'll give you some more money if you just give me lots of blood and violence, then you know what? We just might get it. It just won't be on Disney Plus. It'll be on Hulu because that's where the adult content is going.
Hashtag release the Bernthal cut. That's what you
Ooh, yeah. Let's start that.
All right. Remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Join our Facebook group, or we're on Twitter at @BuyPopcorn. I do want to add the movie theaters, that's just New York City, and California is the other big, giant area that we're waiting to open up. Once that opens up, I think you're going to start seeing the movie business come back alive. But New York's a huge one. So good for movies. If you're a movie fan, you're a movie theater fan, that's great news. All right. We are off next week. So we'll share one of our older bad movie nights from Patreon in the feed. We're debating between Bad Boys and Anaconda. You guys let us know, and that'll be like a sample so you can hear what you're missing by not being a Patreon supporter, which you can be one at patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That's patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That helps our show because we're independently funded. It helps fans support their favorite podcasts. And we have 2 new supporters, Christian Rickman. Welcome aboard. I wonder if you're any relation to Alan Rickman. I'm just going to assume you are, and that your uncle's awesome. And Scott Calgaro, welcome back to being a Patreon supporter. So thank you guys again. Patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider.
Thanks, guys, and welcome aboard.
All right, we've got some.
Now we need like a cruising reference. Like somebody else needs to be like
Nobody needs
captain of the ship.
Nobody needs that. Nobody.
Okay.
We're not doing a Love Boat here. So we've got some reviews. First up is Cherry, which hits theaters February 26th before it debuts on Apple Plus on March 12th.
This is the one that stars Tom Holland, the wild journey of a disenfranchised young man from Ohio who meets the love of his life only to risk losing her through a series of bad decisions and challenging life circumstances. Now, this one is from the Russo brothers, but the directing duo's younger sister, Angela Russo-Otstadt, is actually a co-writer for the screenplay. So I thought that was kind of cool to
Nice and
mention also.
family-oriented.
Yeah. But Aaron, you saw this one, and it's supposed to be Tom Holland's more adult and serious debut as an actor. Do you get that? Is there success on his end?
All right, I want to preface with...
Oh, boy.
Hey, hold tight. I loved The Devil All the Time. That was one of my favorite movies last year. Tom Holland's a star of it. So I know Tom Holland can be a good actor. And he's not bad here. He's fine. He does a fine job, which is what every actor wants to hear from any kind of critic. Mostly what I'll tell you is there are several moments in the movie which required the character to have a certain amount of swagger. You know what I mean? Like a certain amount of just a cocksure walk, just a little bit of attitude that fit the swagger definition. And all those scenes made me really think of is how worried I am about that Uncharted movie because that character's all swagger. And I just feel like when Holland's trying to do that, I can just see him acting, and it just doesn't play for me. Um, he's fine. There are moments where I think he's very good, but overall, there are too many scenes where I saw him trying to quote unquote act to showcase his versatility, and it just kind of came across as acting, not reality. So he did a fine job, but it wasn't. There's nothing here where I'm going to go rave about it. I mean, Devil All the Time, I would have raved about that performance. This one, I was kind of disappointed with his performance.
Now, talking a little bit about the story, how do you feel about the way Cherry addresses opioid addiction and combat PTSD? Because those are central to the premise and this character.
Yeah, I know some of the plot points, and probably if you've seen the trailer for Cherry, you probably think it's going to be a bank robber thriller. There is bank robbing happening. It's really minor. It is not, I mean, it's an important part of the plot, but it's definitely not something that is, I mean, it's not The Dark Knight. You know what I mean? It's not Ocean's 11. It's not a big heist movie. It's really about a guy and his life, how he meets his, excuse me, how he meets his wife, Emily, and then goes off to war. And he goes off as a very charming, delightful, normal person. But when he goes to war, he sees so many horrible things that he comes back, and he lives through so many horrible things that he comes back unable to shake the war from his head. Those are the moments where Holland, I think, is great. When he's reacting to that, I think he does a wonderful job. And then because of that, he slowly gets into addiction to dull the pain of the voices in his head, the pain in his head, and eventually his wife, who's played by Sierra Bravo, she follows him into this hole, and then it ends up to how do we get money for drugs? We rob banks, so that's where the bank robbery comes into play. It all works. It's actually an interesting story. It goes different ways. I just there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in this movie.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this.
Okay, well, go ahead. I mean, go ahead. Say what you wanted to say.
Yeah, well, I was reading some of the interviews with the directors and their sister, who was one of the writers, to just get an understanding of this story. And they use a wide variety of narrative techniques, like breaking the fourth wall, like you mentioned, dividing the story into chapters, and some other things that I didn't want to go too far into. But it sounds like that might not have worked for you, or did it not suit the film?
No, it actually I like the chapters. It goes, epilogue, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, prologue, whatever. I liked that. I did think that was unique, clever. I mean, we've seen a lot of movies do that. Tarantino does chapters all the time. And the fourth wall breaking, I think, mostly works. I just don't think it's very consistent. I feel like it loses focus of that ability several times in the movie, where you'll go long periods where it's not ever coming up, and then all of a sudden he's talking to you again. It's like, well, what? So it makes what point of view is the story being told from does get kind of confusing or just odd at certain moments. It's not bad. It's unique. It's different. I like different. It just felt like it wasn't used consistently to where it made narrative sense. Now, maybe they're trying to pitch it from, well, it's coming from a guy whose brain is he's dealing with PTSD and drug addiction, so it's coming from his brain. That's why it's all over the place. Maybe that's what they were going for. I just don't think it always worked.
I think that's an important distinction when you're talking as a critic is, yes, I've read that that's their perspective that they were trying to go for, but if it didn't read that way for a viewer, for an audience member, it doesn't matter what your intentions are necessarily. It matters how you convey and how you put that forward, and it sounds like there were some moments where that faltered.
I got the intent. That's what I gather the intent was. I hadn't heard from them, so that's the first I've actually heard it confirmed. But I got the intent. It just doesn't work, and it doesn't work consistently for me. No. In a story wise, like it's a movie where I think, okay, there's some interesting stuff here. I feel like several plot points just get recycled a couple times, and it just feels repetitive in certain spots. It went on too long. It should have been easily a half hour shorter. Easily a half hour shorter. I mean, I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes total. And it just didn't
Oh,
need to
wow.
be. It just didn't need to be.
And it's worth mentioning that this is also based on a book written by the man who lived this experience. So he was not involved in the filmmaking portion. He actually declined that, but I think it's kind of interesting that this is a real story and
Yeah,
you obviously
absolutely.
have more perspective on it seeing it. So what's your price of admission you would give it if the full price were $10?
Okay. Before I give a score, I do want to say this is the Russo brothers who did the previous Avengers films. There's a lot of money on the screen. So for a PTSD heroin movie, this is an opioid heroin's involved too. This is a really expensive looking movie for a movie about PTSD and drug addiction. It was kind of surprising. I mean, it doesn't look like guerrilla filmmaking. It's not train spotting or anything. And it's shot beautifully. Like from a visual perspective, the cinematography by Newton Siegel, I think it was, is stunning. But it's mundane, it's overlong, and I think it repeats the story a couple times. So if $10 is the price of admission, I would give it $5.
A little disappointing for a Russo brothers film.
I was a little disappointed too, and I don't think Holland is bad by any stretch of the imagination. Before anybody writes a letter, he just wasn't great.
This
But
has
I am
nothing to do with Spider-Man.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I would have been really happy if Uncle Ben showed up, though. That would have jacked the price up to at least a 6 right there. If they just, I mean, he's on drugs. Why not? See, frickin' Uncle Ben walks by. That would
Oh
be
my
great.
god.
I'd love it. Martin Sheen just walking down the street. What is going on? All right. Well, Amanda saw I Care a Lot, which is on Netflix now. And I'm hearing a ton of people are talking about this movie. It was written and directed by Jay Blakeson. Rosamund Pike stars as Marla Grayson, a conservator who's really a con artist. So think Britney Spears' dad. She
How perfect timing, right?
Wow.
She'll argue in court a senior citizen can no longer look after their well-being, and therefore Marla should be made their guardian. Then she sticks their ass in a rest home, takes all their assets. So basically, she's just ripping them off. So then she meets Jennifer, who's played by Diane Wiest, Oscar winner Diane Wiest, who she considers as an easy mark. And then she finds out that Jennifer and her associates are much tougher than they seem. Amanda, by everything I've read, Rosamund Pike is absolutely phenomenal in this. I Care a Lot. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It should be no surprise. I mean, as much as we despised her character in Gone Girl, she was fantastic in her portrayal. And I'll say she's not the same type of crazy here, but she still has a level of crazy to her. It's more the confidence and the manipulation tactics that she's so confident in her abilities to manipulate others that she has no problem going up against Big Bad in this movie because she has an end goal she wants to meet. She wants to be rich. She enjoys the lavish, wealthy lifestyle, and she wants that. It's kind of just about the role of being a wealthy woman, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
Is she as evil as she sounds?
I mean,
'Cause
yeah,
that-
she's pretty despicable. She's pretty horrible. This
so
movie
are we
is
supposed to root for her, or are we supposed to root against her? Because she's the lead character.
yeah, so in this film, you're probably going to root against her if you have any morals or conscience at all,
I
because
do not.
she literally is preying on the elderly, and you're gonna see like your great grandparents in these like that you've
Oh.
seen in a home. You're gonna like relay that and be like, oh my gosh, I remember when, and then you're like, whoa, wait a second, she can do that? Yes, guys, she can do that. People can do this. It's crazy. And seeing her in action in the courtroom makes it even more impactful because you get to see then the other side where she's not despicable, where she's really trying to convey that she's here to help people. She loves people. She's trying to do what's best for them, and she needs to be there to prevent their families from taking away their money and hurting them and taking advantage of them. And that's why she's here. And so when you have that dichotomy of her character, the difference, the juxtaposition of those two dynamics, you're in awe of her performance because she goes back and forth between them like it's just I mean, it's so easy for her.
Wow. Now,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people talking about this movie. I don't hear anybody talking about anybody else in the movie except Rosamund Pike. You got Peter Dinklage, Diane Wiest. I mean, it's a solid cast. So is it just that none of them are as powerful as she is because she's so great at writing that fine line of vulnerable and savage that you were talking about? Or is it just because nobody was quite bringing it like Pike was?
I think it's because she's on another level than them. Peter Dinklage still brings it. He's this, I don't know what's up with his haircut, but he's this badass, kind of like a mafia guy. And he's here to, you don't really know in what capacity, but he and Rosamund Pike's character are going up against each other. So
Okay.
they have kind of their own feud that fires inspired by what was happening with Diane Weist's character. And I will say for her, she really, really brought it. There were moments when I felt her character was one direction and then she just completely shifted and I was like, "Wait a second. You have so much range to you in such a small capacity of a role, if that makes sense."
Yeah, it does. She's
And
a
I'm
great
trying not to
actress.
talk too much about her character because she's a lot of fun to watch progress through the movie as this woman who she's one of the rare ones where her doctor believes she's so early onset in her dementia or her health conditions where she's still a high functioning adult. She's got money, she's got a life, she's enjoying time out with her friends, she's retired, she used to work hard, and all of a sudden this is just ripped from her. I mean, she literally, the movie opens with her just having to move out in 5 minutes to
Damn.
go to this. Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, when you talk about the emotional impact of the script and the plot points here, you really feel it for empathy for elderly and for people who don't understand what's going on, because even though she's high functioning, if she didn't understand what was going on as someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, she'd probably feel the same way as her character, just as lost and confused. And you're just ripped away. And so it's
Wow.
really sad, but there's a lot of powerful, crazy moments in here too.
I watched the trailer and Peter Dinklage and he's got henchmen and they're all in black and whatnot. And I'm like, so basically, maybe I'm just gonna fan fiction it a little bit. And Diane Weiss is playing her character from the Lost Boys, and these are the Frog Brothers that are gonna help her out. I just kind of made that little attachment. But is this a very cynical, vile movie, dark comedy? Like, what's the tone the director Jay Blakeson is going for here?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly in the realm of it's difficult because it's not just a feud story. It's not just about the elderly. It's a combination of the cynical Rosamund Pike character and kind of how the evil can always win in some way, and money has such a hard ruling on our lives. But also they're really trying to fuel your emotions because you're forced to choose between two bad people, and who are you going to root for
I
in a
like it.
situation where it's evil versus evil, because neither Peter Dinklage nor Rosamund Pike are necessarily good characters. They're not people that you're inspired by. They're both kind of terrible people, but in this situation you're fueled by your emotion for these older characters, these elderly characters, including Diane. And so how it navigates through that is really what's impressive to me. And it is pretty funny. There are so many moments between, especially between Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage, and just her character in general. I mean, she is the absolute center of this movie in so many ways, but just every scene she's in, your attention, as much as you hate it, is all on her.
All right. So if $10 full price admission, what do you give I Care a Lot?
$7.50.
I'm gonna watch this like soon. Just sounds like
Do
so
it.
horrible, yet endlessly fascinating. I can't wait to. I wish I would have watched that instead of Cherry. All right, The Vigil is releasing to select theaters and video on demand February 26th. I saw this one, John. Why don't you away.
All right, so a man providing overnight watch to a deceased member of his former Orthodox Jewish community finds himself opposite a malevolent entity in writer-director Keith Thomas' electrifying feature debut, which it is really his feature debut. This is a Blumhouse movie which has a long-running history right now of creating these cost-effective, scary movies for everyone. Aaron, does this fit into that track record that they have going?
Yes. Yes, this was a win for me. Very dark and unsettling. Keith Thomas does wonders with no budget. I mean, there's no budget. And there's a serious mood and atmosphere while slowly dropping lore about this mysterious demon and what may or may not be doing to Yakov throughout the night. And if you don't understand what is going on, a shomer is in Jewish faith is a person who sits with a corpse through the night so that the dead can find peace. But Dave Davis plays Yakov Ronan, and he's very lackadaisical about it, about his own culture, about even the concept of this. He's just doing it for the money. And then he starts witnessing some wild events that make him believe that this Mezek demon is real and that the corpse, had dealt with this demon for many, many years. And it's kind of, is this real? Is it not real? What's going to happen? How does he get out of it? I mean, and it's an intense, creepy thriller that I really dug.
Very cool. So yeah, you mentioned that it's Keith Thomas' first movie. It is very obvious just from his IMDb. This is his first feature film. He wrote it. He's directed it. Can you tell me if anything jumped out to you as being possibly his voice in this?
Yeah, he does atmosphere more than jump scares, which I always appreciate in a horror movie. I don't like cats jumping out of cupboards because who put them in the cupboard? Who did that? I can't stand that. He's really, I think he's very smart and conservative with his storytelling. He lets a scene play out, and in horror, I think it's very important to let a scene play out, especially if you're trying to build mood and atmosphere. And he lets the camera play with a scene. You do start to wonder what's going on around Yakov. Like what is going on in the scenario when it's dark? What is really happening? Is Lynn Cohen stars as Mrs. Litvak. She's the widow, and she gives a terrifying performance and also a sad performance because she has dementia, but she has moments of understanding. So you never know the information she's giving Yakov. He never knows, is that real or is that just from someone suffering dementia, which would be helpful when you don't know if you're fighting a demon or not. There's a very cleverly shot moment that's very pivotal to the plot that I actually had to rewind, which I normally don't do, but I had to rewind just so I could hear the information that was coming at me. And it was shot almost very like one of those Sinister tapes in a way, shot in that manner. And you really had to pay attention to it for details about what that meant for the future of the movie. And it just, I think he's a really sharp director, very smart, and I look forward to what he does next.
Now, when I was watching the trailer to this, one of the things I noticed about the trailer is it does that whole that building up of intensity, that boom, 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 boom intensity build up. Does the movie have that same sort of feel to it, or is it just is that just marketing trying to get you into something different?
No, it's excuse me. It is a slow build. It's very much I don't want to say slow burn because there's stuff happening throughout it, but that first half an hour is definite setup, getting you comfortable, know the characters, know the situation, know what a shomer is, and kind of adjusting to Jewish faith and whatnot. And then the movie continuously amps up the tension as it goes. So yeah, it's like that.
Okay. All right. If $10 full price of admission, what do you give the Vigil?
$6.50.
Very cool.
Definitely recommend it. Now let's go to our From the Outside In topic. This week, we're going to make it pretty simple. Great movie plots or premises that just didn't work. We each have three from a series, whatever. We have 3 examples of great movie plots we felt that just didn't work. And then we're kind of going to go bullet point through a bunch of listener choices and kind of we'll just take a vote on if we agree or not. So let's start with John, Amanda, then myself. And we'll start with round robin. What's your first great movie plot that just didn't work, and why?
All right, so if I told you that we're going to make a movie about one of the most interesting Marvel characters there possibly is, what would you have to say?
Just make sure Uncle Ben is in it.
Right. Well, anyhow, this is Wolverine, so no Uncle Ben. If there is Uncle Ben, he's actually the one making rice. But
Wow.
So X-Men Origins Wolverine. Great idea. The comic that it's based off of is awesome. You get to find out like Logan growing up, what is going on with his life, how he got to where he is, and the movie sort of does that, but it takes all the teeth out of it.
Okay, and I think we're all going to have a little differences on a little bit of a difference on some of these, but I like that movie and I think the benefit is that I don't know the comic. I don't know Wolverine as a comic.
Yep.
I don't know the information, so I kind of I dig that movie, and I still like the little twist with the wife. I think that's a fun twist, and plus you see his ass, and a lot of women like that. A lot of men like that. I like that.
I mean, a lot of everybody likes that. I'm with
Yeah.
Aaron, though. I think there's a benefit sometimes to not knowing the original properties because you can be blissfully unaware. And that's where I
Exactly.
sit.
We're stupid.
Yeah, or stupid.
We
I
are
was trying to
stupid.
give us like a nicer phrasing, but stupid works too.
Yeah, and maybe I don't understand the premise of the question, but the movie brings
you're
in
not
some
wrong.
things.
You're not
Huh?
wrong. Everyone in the world.
There's a
agrees
lot
with
of
you.
people. Yeah,
All
there's
right.
a lot of people who are on your side. We're in the
Please-
minority.
Please do not misunderstand that as we're saying you're wrong. You are not wrong, my friend. You are dead right. We have different taste, and we are allowing a lot of things to slide. That's what I
Okay.
would say.
Because like the whole Taylor Kitsch as Taylor Kitsch as
I liked him as Gambit. I did.
yeah, I like the actor, and I like the idea of him being Gambit. The execution of it was just way too not Gambit for me.
The only thing in that movie I really hated will be the obvious thing, which is Deadpool. It's
Right.
just awfully done. It has zero to do. I mean, I like him at the beginning when he's Wade Wilson, but it has zero to do with the character of Deadpool. I don't even understand that choice. That's the only thing I really don't like.
All right, I think we're in agreement then.
Sure. All right, Amanda, what's your first bad or great movie premise that wasn't a great movie?
So I decided to go with Green Lantern, keeping on the superhero concept.
Oh, all three of our first ones are just going to connect. I like it.
Yeah. To give a synopsis of the movie, a reckless test pilot, Hal Jordan, is granted an alien ring that bestows him with otherworldly powers that inducts him into an intergalactic police force, the Green Lantern Corps. Now, in theory, Green Lantern should be awesome. Green Lantern should be fun, but Green Lantern, and to cite an individual who has been a guest on The Hollywood Outsider and who is a host on Smirk, Zach Parkerson, he says that Green Lantern should be Star Wars meets The Lord of the Rings in a superhero universe. And I think for most people, that's like, heck yeah, I want that. That is not what we got. We did not get that. We got horrible. I mean, whoever decided that we should just CGI the costume instead of just making a real costume just made poor decisions.
I'm convinced that was all of the people that had seen Ryan Reynolds, without a shirt on. And they were all like, we could get this for like 3 months. Oh,
Yeah.
Just do a CGI suit, guy. CGI suit. Let's do that.
And he also was probably not the best cast for that. I mean,
I don't
he
think he was bad. I
What?
think-
no, but
Yeah,
he
he's
but
great.
No,
It's not-
he-
he was
for-
not the problem in that.
He is not the problem with that movie whatsoever.
he is
I don't
not
think so.
the representation of Green Lantern as a character. He is not supposed to be that smarmy.
Yes, he is.
Every
No, he's
character should
not.
be that. No, he's not, John. He's not in the comics.
He's not
Okay.
supposed to be that smarmy. So while we love Ryan Reynolds, and I'm on 100% board with that, that was just not the best pick for Green Lantern. And I'm just a little disappointed because after learning more about the character and the world and the comics, this could have been something really great.
I agree it could have been something great. I don't agree that I think Ryan Reynolds can play just about anything, and I'm all for it. My problem with this is it was just too much CGI. It was like a blender of CGI, and none of it made sense. It's just like, let's make everything. Why? Because Green Lanterns can do that. Okay.
And so many
but why?
villains.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
lot of stuff going
just yeah.
Yeah, it didn't know what it wanted to be, and it had too much going on. Ryan Reynolds was not the problem. However, it would have been a great movie for Nathan Fillion to be Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
This
Which
was
he does
also
play
before
Green
the
Lan-
peak.
Sorry, go ahead.
He does play Green Lantern in some of the animated stuff.
Oh, I actually did not know that.
Yep.
I didn't care.
This would be, I think we have to keep in mind though, this was before like the big superhero combustion
True.
of everything.
Yeah.
So they didn't have like a real working, I mean, to be fair, they don't really have a great working yet. Anyway, but there wasn't a good map out of what a superhero movie should be like at this point. So I think if they were to do that now, there would be much more clear direction on how to translate the comics into a film.
Well, they're getting an HBO Max series now, so that should be really good. That should be interesting. Mine connect because 6 Degrees of Ryan Reynolds. The first row is all Ryan Reynolds bombs. No, just kidding. Just kidding. It connects to Wolverine. That's how it connects. X-Men: The Last Stand and Dark Phoenix. I am saying both of them. And I actually
Can you do this?
I can do whatever I want.
It's kind of his show.
Yeah, that's true.
I never said you couldn't, but it's the same plot. So that's why I'm saying it's the same plot. The Dark Phoenix storyline, one of the best I know this one, and one of the best storylines in comics. It's a fantastic story. And while I kind of enjoyed the Dark Phoenix version, I did not enjoy The Last Stand in any aspect. The truth remains that Fox had two chances to nail the storyline of how Jean Grey became the Phoenix, and neither time could they make it land. I just don't know why is it that difficult to make it right. I think it needs 2 movies probably, and Apocalypse should have been the first movie. That's what I think. But it's just wasted opportunity because that's a great storyline. John, you're more the comic guru on our show. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like...
Oh, it's a super heavy, awesome comic storyline. So it could have been done so much better than what we got either time. But it's one of those stories that definitely does not fit into the span of however long you're going to make a movie, because it needs to be hollowed out. Not hollowed it out. It needs to be solided up quite a bit more than what they did, where they're just kind of skirting along, being like, here's some random reasons why this is working the way it is, and let's just kind of sprinkle it in and let you figure it out. Instead of it really needs to have that story put front and center and good just grounding, and neither movie did a good job of doing that.
So I didn't see Dark Phoenix because it just came out 2-3 years ago or something, and I just never watched it.
Mm-hmm. You're not the only one.
But I will say, and I know I'm in the minority, almost all of the X-Men movies I've been a fan of.
Even The Last Stand.
There's something about them. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm such a fan of the X-Men movies. And I can recognize that there are some failures. I mean, that's clear. But
well, it's
I
okay
still
to
like
be
them.
fan of these things and still sit there and be able to say, hey, this is something I really like, because I think Aaron and I are both going to end up doing this in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But we can both go, this is something I really like. Here's some problems.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at with this. I know there's problems, but I still like it.
You know, you can easily go, Jordan Peele is a great director. He doesn't have to be the greatest director in the entire generation.
And nobody
but
has
he's
said
just
that.
pretty good. It's okay. I really like him. I like what he does.
John, what is your number 2 great movie plot that didn't work out?
Oh, speaking of that. All right. We're going to take 2 of the big powerhouses from DC. We're going to slap them in a movie together. And then we're going to cut the movie into pieces so that you don't understand why they're fighting. And that's Batman versus Superman. And I'm going to talk about primarily the theatrical release, because that's the one that technically counts. Because if you watch the extended cut, the story makes 10% more sense.
Maybe 50.
But, huh?
Maybe 50.
Maybe 50. But I remember watching this in the theater, and then like the good, like 2/3, maybe 4/3 of the movie. I don't know how many thirds there are in something, but it didn't matter because halfway through it, I'm going, but why? Why are they fighting? Why are
Why
they
is-
mad at each other?
Why is
But
Granny's
why?
pea jar going on the counter?
There are just so many things that they just like really crapped the bed on as far as what they messed up on in that movie. And I shouldn't have spent so much time asking, but why? And I've been saying this for years about that movie, especially the theatrical release. I never understood how they cut that movie so thinly that you never understood in the theater release that until the very end that Lex Luthor was kind of playing the two of them like puppets.
Yeah, which works better in the ultimate cut. When you see, which I'll never understand, when you're making a movie this huge, why wouldn't that be the cut that got released to begin with?
Right.
It's 3 hours.
Seriously.
They've proved that an opus like Avengers Endgame and that sort of Infinity War, they can be 3 hours and people will still sit in their ass in seats. Lord of the Rings proved it 20 years ago. People will sit if you make it good enough, and that would have been a better movie.
Yeah.
It just would have been.
Yeah. Oh man, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, but I just forgot what it was.
Is it about Jesse Eisenberg's casting? Because that's what I was going to bring up.
No, I'm fine with that, but go ahead.
You should not be. So you're bringing up that movie, and I am a fan of that movie. I will defend that movie. Martha, I won't defend as much, but I get it. I just don't think it works as well as Snyder keeps telling everybody it does.
No, but it's hilarious at this point.
Yeah, it's its own meme at this point.
Yeah.
Its own GIF. I mean, it
Right.
basically just runs the gamut. But I will honestly say I think Zack Snyder has one of the most inspired casting minds of any director working. I firmly believe that. There's a lot of actors I never would have expected to be in the roles that they were in who just dominated. Look at the comedian in Watchmen. Look at Aquaman, Jason Momoa. What? Look at Gal Gadot. Never, for most people, she doesn't fit that bill. They wanted someone more curvy. They wanted whatever. They wanted something. And so I think he's really, really talented at picking the right person for a part, with the really strong exception of Jesse Eisenberg. I really thought he was going for something more bold that didn't work. And I know Cranston was on the table at one point. Just think in your mind, John, how much better that movie would have been if Lex Luthor was Bryan Cranston. Just
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you got me on that one. You definitely got me on that one.
It's just like one of the biggest misses in casting. I just think would have completely turned reaction to that movie around.
Right. Now, my only other problem with that movie is the actual fight between Batman and Superman.
Should have been 30 seconds long.
Well, it should have been like Superman saying, okay, so this is what I just figured out. Lex Luthor, and the whole time Superman's talking, Batman could be punching him and doing absolutely nothing to him.
Yes.
Just like, so look, just get it out of your system. But look, this is what's going on. This is what I figured out. This is how I figured it out. This is what he just told me. He's got my mom. Her name is Martha. You might like that. He could have been saying all these things, and the whole time, like, Bruce Wayne's just getting tired. That's what the whole fight should have been. There should have been no reason for Batman to just get annoyed at a human who's trying to hit him and be like, okay, now I'm annoyed and I'm going to accidentally throw you through a building.
Okay, that's fair. You're right. I don't disagree with that. It's kind of like Godzilla versus Kong. I don't see how Kong has a shot. I just don't. I just don't, but we'll see how that plays out.
Save Mothra.
All right, man.
How do you know that name?
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is a movie that I hate with all of my being, but I went into mildly excited, if you will, just because of the director. And it is now my least favorite movie that has ever been made, and that is Lady in the Water.
Okay.
So the concept the film is about this superintendent who thinks he's rescuing a young woman from a pool, and he ends up finding out that she's actually a character from a bedtime story that's trying to make it back home, and he works with his tenants to protect this woman from creatures that are trying to keep her in our world. And the concept seems like it would be so cool and fantasy like, but also could be really dark and demonic. And
Like
there's
Splash or Shape of Water, like something around there.
just something that actually does something with the story.
Sure.
Whereas Lady in the Water does nothing. I mean, literally, it does not do anything with the plot. And it just none of it works, none of it makes sense. It was such a disappointment because you know who's attached to it. You know who should be making this something good, and it failed on so many levels. I know I've talked about Lady in the Water being a terrible movie, but what do you guys think of Lady in the Water?
No, it's a terrible movie. I'm with
Okay.
you, 100%. Yeah, the only surprise ending for that movie was it's over. Oh, God, I'm so surprised. Thank God.
Yeah. Thank
Thank God.
God we can leave.
Yeah,
I kind
that
of love
was-
the movie.
Hey, you would.
What?
You would.
I
You
really,
just-
I really
shame on
love
you.
the story. Like the guy, he thinks he's nothing, but he's trying to help her, and he thinks it becomes his job to just like find all the people who are more important to saving her and putting them together. But it turns out that that's not his job at all. But he's actually ends up being more important to her whole life than he ever expected. I mean, I just think there's something great and beautiful about that. Where again, he's just somebody who thinks he's nothing, and it turns out he's a lot more than that.
Thank you for selling my point, John. This could be such a great concept and it could work on so many
Yeah.
levels, but it failed to do so. But I'm glad that you extracted the positive elements of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it worked for me.
Everything John said was the movie I thought I was
Yeah,
getting.
right.
I didn't see any of that. So I don't know if you just heard the plot and then you fell asleep. So then in your mind, because you're a creative fella, you're an artist. I don't know. Maybe in your mind you just saw the movie that should have been made because that's not the movie I saw. The movie I saw.
I
just
purposely sat down and rewatched this movie a couple times
sucked. Shame on you.
Why would you purposefully do that to yourself?
Yeah.
because I
For
really
shame.
like it. It makes me happy.
I'm not going to shame you for liking the movie.
I will. I will. Give me
This
time.
is supposed to be a safe place, Aaron.
Give me time. All right. Well, my next one is Escape from L.A.
Oh.
It's one of the greatest missed opportunities in film for me. I mean, and I love this movie. Shamefully love this movie despite its flaws. Despite its flaws. I know organically this is a bad film. So no one needs to write and tell me how stupid I am or how I don't get it and blah 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 blah. I get it. Bad movie. Still like it because Kurt Russell is Snake Plissken, and I think he's one of the best characters on film in my lifetime. I'm a big fan. And the plot is about the president's daughter. This time takes a device that could shut the whole world down because essentially she's this idealist. She's being used by a thug inside LA, which is now a prison. It's basically like New York, but on the other coast. And Snake is sent in to retrieve both her, maybe, if he can get her out, and this device. It's essentially a remake of Escape from New York. It's just done with a much bigger budget and a lot of stabs at LA culture. All of this should be fantastic. And there's a lot of great ideas in the movie. But had John Carpenter not been on the wrong side of his career when he made this movie, which he was on the downward slope, and had they not hired the absolute worst special effects house in film history to handle the film, this could have been a great movie. Because of those two things, John Carpenter was not on his A game. He was a few years past his prime. Kurt Russell brought it in every single. He committed to the whole movie. It's not just because I love Kurt Russell. He committed to that whole movie, and the special effects are phenomenally horrible. Just phenomenally horrible. They had a $50 million budget. If you watch this movie, you would think it was $8, and that's sad. So that had a great plot and great potential, and failed in every possibility. Who's with me on Escape from LA?
I mean, I still love it, but you're probably not wrong.
I'm not gonna disagree with you.
Okay, that's cool. Why don't you go watch
I feel like
Lady in
this is
Water
the
then?
most we've agreed.
Yeah. Probably.
This is weird.
Probably. All right, John. Final one.
All right, so my final one I brought it up a few times on the show for whatever bad thing that needed to be brought up, and I keep on having to bring this thing up because on paper this movie should be perfect, with the exception of one glaring issue, which is its director and probably the guy who wrote the story. But In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege story,
Jason Statham one.
Jason Statham, you know, you've got like one of the most amazing put together casts possible for a movie, and then you throw in Yul Bull as the writer director. I think he wrote it. Screenwriter is Doug Taylor, and what you get is a movie where Jason Statham says all of 5 lines at all.
Not inherently bad. Not inherently bad.
Could
be
not
cool.
inherently
stoic, mute, tough.
Yeah, it is. It is based off of video game property, but we're not going to count that against it because it has so many things else going wrong with it, like Yule Bowl, or Uwe Bowl, whatever you want to call them. But you know, the cast at the time of this release, you've got Lily Sobieski, John Rhys-Davies, Ron Perlman, Claire Forlani, Christina Loken. Okay, take her or leave her. Matthew Lillard, Brian White, Ray Liotta, Burt Reynolds. These are. Like,
Ray Liotta, did he wear a leather jacket or something through the whole movie? I mean,
yeah. And he's got that Ray Liotta accent. You know, he just stepped out of a freaking Italian restaurant or some stuff, and you know, hey, where's the pasta at? You know, and you know he's supposed to be a wizard.
Where's the king? I'll whack him.
Everything about this movie just like, and the thing is that when I watched this movie, I sat down and ended up watching the entire thing, and everybody else I was watching this movie with went to bed. They just quit. They were like, in the first 5 minutes, they're like, we are the fuck out of here. And I stuck with it, and I want that time back because how dare they put this cast in a movie and it come out so terribly.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to say to any of that because it's one of the most awful movies I've ever seen, and I did not finish it, so I don't know how it ends. I don't care how it ends. I mean, you don't need to tell me. I don't really care. It's a movie that I think I made it about 30 minutes in, and then just said, it's Uwe Boll again. All right, he's just doing the same thing. He just does not care, does not give a shit.
Nope.
Alrighty then. Well, my last one is In Time. In a future where people stop aging at 25 but are engineered to live only one more year, having the means to buy your way out of the situation is a shot at immortal youth. And this character finds himself accused of murder and on the run with a hostage, a connection that becomes an important part of the way against the system. Now, in theory, this is a really, really cool story and concept. Cool. But it lacks depth in the concept. It really just skims the surface of it and spends too much time extrapolating on other things that don't really matter, including the love story. I think it falls too far into that. It's poorly directed. The dialogue is real rough. And going back to them skimming over the surface of the concept, they don't even really think through the specifics of how this would work. Like, you just bump into somebody and because all you have to do is bump arms and you lose that. Like, that doesn't make sense. So just some of those things that just you should have maybe thought, 2 seconds about, and you would have drafted something a little bit better. And there's so much potential in it, but it just fell pretty hard.
I don't think it was Timberlake, right? Remember? Right?
Yeah.
It was Timberlake. Yeah. I don't think Justin Timberlake was that great in that movie either. I don't think he was a good fit.
Not as the centerfold of the story.
Right. Was it Olivia Wilde? I think it was Olivia Wilde.
No, it was Amanda Seyfried.
Okay, well, whoever it was, they fit well. It was just Timberlake did not work for me. I saw this years ago. I only saw it once, so I don't have that one memorized. But good choice. Obscure one.
Yep.
Yeah, would have been really good if they would have, done their job.
My next one is going to be one of those where I get to make the rules. So it's the Star Wars prequels. All of them. Just all of them.
You are cheating today.
I don't think so. I didn't set this rule. And I said it to you guys earlier. It's not my fault you didn't read them. But I sent them. So you could have objected earlier. No objection. So it stands. This was the origin story that fans thought they wanted. I mean, what made Anakin stray? What made Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader? The love story of the ages between Padme and Anakin. How did the Emperor rise and Anakin fall? And we ended up with a movie with overwrought dialogue, the worst romance in any science fiction film I can think of. Bad political moves, everybody could see coming about a mile away. Ridiculous coincidences, a hero who randomly kills people and children with barely a reason, and whatever the hell Jar Jar was. I mean,
hey, don't come at Jar Jar, man.
I don't want to come. I never want to see Jar Jar again. Okay, I want him on blind spike.
Don't.
It just feels like, and there are great moments in each one of these movies. Like there are great scenes in each one of those movies. The Darth Maul fight is fantastic. The Yoda fight in Clones is fantastic. The battle on the lava pit is wonderful. There's so many cool moments. These aren't good movies, and the story missed so many opportunities, one after another. And that romance, which is the linchpin of everything, never once felt real. Not
It was so
once.
weird.
It was just bad. They had no chemistry. It made no sense. It was weird because the first movie, I mean, he's like 5 and she's looks like an adult. And then the next movie, they're like, "What's up, girl? Hey, let's have some twins." You know, and it just went to Dawson's Creek in space way too fast. It just did not work for me in any stretch of the imagination. Do you guys agree, or are you, in hindsight, you're more forgiving of the prequels now?
Oh, God, I don't know, man. It's tough for me to say. Like the sequels, their sequels are one thing. The prequels are one thing. Like I kind of take or leave, and sometimes I enjoy them, and sometimes I get frustrated. The sequels, on the other hand, the 7, 8, 9, those I kind of have a problem with, just because they are like direct copies of 4, 5, and 6. And then at one point in the middle, somebody completely like tries to tell the story about how anyone can become a Jedi, but yet they still kind of screws up how that story is told. So
What a wasted opportunity. That was what the
Agreed.
Skywalker should have been. The Rise of the Skywalker, whatever, the 9th movie,
Right.
should have had that element. That was so powerful, or could have been so powerful.
Absolutely.
Sorry, but yeah.
Like that's one of those things that lost me on Star Wars as far as that's concerned.
You know, I still like the prequels. I know that I'm in the minority of people who will even watch them. I know I'm probably the only person who likes Jar Jar. I don't know. I just think he's cute. I'm not bothered by him. Don't come at me, bro. But I realize that these movies have serious problems, and I'm okay with that because they're still fun. I feel like the prequels are the ones that can get your kids interested in it if they're not interested in it, and they see past all of the problems of a film, and it's almost like they're tailored for a child because they have those very memorable scenes that will grasp a child's attention, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're working for adults. And so for me, for whatever reason, I just kind of accepted the prequels and still like them, and I watch them. It's fine. I know that there's some problems. Anakin and Padme, I don't no, that is messed up. That is what we like to call now statutory rape.
Wow.
I mean, there's like a weird, you mentioned it, a weird age difference. He is like a literal child, and she's like already past puberty.
And
Like,
he's supposed to be 9,
what's up?
and she's supposed to be 14 at the time.
She looks 25. She just does.
I said supposed to be.
I can't help it. And the next movie, he's like 37, and she's still 25.
She's still 25, yeah.
I don't quite understand how that math works, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. And Sean Gallagher on Twitter mentioned The Last Jedi, which you alluded to, that what do you say? No one you love is ever truly gone. Anyone can be a hero. Learn from failure. Really awesome themes, but good grief, the execution was terrible. And it has the longest. Here's my biggest problem with Last Jedi. Everybody talks about that. The space battle. It's the most ridiculous thing. it lasts for the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically waiting. Why would you wait if you're going to blow them out of the sky anyway? Why do you wait for an entire movie to make your move? It's just give them enough time to go on a casino heist. What? I love Ryan Johnson. I think that is not a great Ryan Johnson movie. I just don't.
No,
I'm with
they could have pulled so many other ways. This goes back to Kathleen Kennedy saying that there's no canon for them to pull from as far as where they can pull the stories from, and it frustrates me.
Yeah. Good picks, everybody. So here's what I'm going to do. Now, we've got a bunch from listeners that had sent in, and I kind of want to go through them, but like a speed round. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on them, okay? So just give me your verdict. Yeah for great movie plot, bad execution, or nay, like you think it was a good movie. You know what I'm saying? Make sense?
Roger that.
Okay.
Sure.
First one, Nate Bruce, Fantasy Island.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, you're absolutely right, Nate. I saw it. It was awful. Great idea, though. Grill Box, Spawn and the Dark Tower.
Is that a movie I've never heard of? Spawn and the Dark Tower?
Spawn, comma, the Dark
No,
Tower.
I'm being
Oh.
funny. I'm being funny.
Yeah.
All right, so the Spawn movie is, it has a great idea, a great premise in which it could have pulled off something great, but unfortunately it suffers from being something straight out of the 90s and superhero something straight out of the 90s. So yeah, the execution is kind of garbage.
Dark Tower?
I kind of like Dark Tower.
Yeah,
No, wait, no, I didn't. I'm confusing it with something else. It was just okay. They could. That's one of those things that kind of walk the line between let's try to make something that's kids safe-ish, but it's also Stephen King has no business being kids safe-ish.
I like the movie, but I also don't know the property at all. So
Yeah,
I think
and I
once
haven't
again,
seen Spawn, but I like Dark Tower, so
I think that matters, right? If you don't really know the property,
it always helps.
Right.
Yep. Okay, I'll try to be faster with these. All right, Peter says Cabin in the Woods spent too much time congratulating itself for knowing all the horror
F
tropes.
that. Nope. It's
And
a good movie.
Yep. All right.
He's wrong.
I'm sorry. You can continue.
Sorry,
We
Peter.
should probably let him talk
No.
and say his piece, but you're wrong.
Yeah, that we're not going to agree on it anyway. Chris Miller, Adam Sandler's Click.
Oh.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
that
You're
one had some problems.
I don't think there's a right way to execute that movie.
I can tell you that what they did wasn't it.
Right.
Yeah.
Brandon Smith, Scott Pilgrim. The whole thing was boring and pretentious, and the video
Nope, you're wrong.
game stuff felt unnecessary and strange. I'm with you, Brandon. Amanda says you're wrong.
Nope, you're
John,
wrong.
tiebreaker.
I kind of like it.
Okay. There
Yep.
you go. Sorry, Brandon. You and I are on this one alone. Levon Polanelli, The Sixth Day. The whole marketing campaign was built around Arnie versus Arnie, and in the film, it was one punch and over. 100% agree.
Haven't seen it.
Agreed.
Andrew Kronk, The Boy, was a good premise until the end of the movie when the film took a left turn and ruined it. I agree with that as well.
Yep.
I didn't see it.
Mark Andrew, Downsizing. What a concept that completely
Mm.
forgets about it halfway through. Agreed.
You're not wrong.
That sounds accurate.
Yep. John Sislo, Aragon. Oh, I kind of like that movie, though, but I don't know the source material.
Yeah,
I don't know
me
the
either.
source material. I kind of like it. I also think it's a lot of missed opportunities.
Troy Heinrichs is going to be a dick. Wonder Woman, 1984.
He's wrong.
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 Yeah, Troy, I'm sorry, buddy. You're wrong.
Henrik
Wrong.
Anderson, The Maze Runner. I was quite disappointed when I realized what a load of crap it was. Wow. I like The Maze. I like the first one. I didn't like the other two.
The first one was all right, but I understand where some people could have problems with it because it's executed very CW young adult-ish. But to be fair, it's a young adult film. It's just presented, the way it's written is more I don't want to say graphic, but it's just, I don't
Gritty.
know, it's more bold. Yeah, that's the right word.
Tabitha Chalice, Civil War. Concept-wise, it was super fun, but it kind of lost the plot to be a good standalone movie. The reason for the actual rift between Tony and Cap was so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm with you. That's another one of those like, all right, so let's talk about this. Could you go ahead and keep hitting me. I'm going to just talk about this real quick. That's one of those.
Fair enough. And how is that runway not destroyed? I mean, really, like all of those superheroes just pounding the crap out of it. Ant-Man's just walking around putting pothole after pothole, and nobody brings up the fact that no plane can fly there ever again. Last one, Lauren Williams. I'll never forgive Mission to Mars for turning into some weird lost love drama and not a sci-fi thriller. Good call.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, it wasn't a great movie. I take it Amanda didn't see that one.
Nah.
All right, let's do upcoming releases.
All right. Yep.
The
Go ahead,
first
Amanda.
one is Chaos Walking, which comes out March 5th in theaters. A dystopian world where there are no women and all living creatures can hear each other's thoughts in a stream of images, words, and sounds called noise. This is another Tom Holland flick.
That sounds so peaceful.
Because there's no women?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's rude.
Okay.
Raya and the Last Dragon. This is March 5th. This is going to be also one of those fun little deals that if you have Disney Plus and you feel like paying the additional $30, you can go ahead and watch it soon. In the realm known as Kamandra, or Kamandra, I've heard it both ways, a reimagined Earth inhabited by ancient civilization, a warrior named Raya is determined to find the Last Dragon. This stars Alan Tudyk, Ross Butler, and Aquafina.
Nice.
I'm totally going to see this.
And I did find out that is going to be in theaters too. So you can see that in theaters.
What?
Actually, instead of paying the $30. Disney
Screw
premiere.
that.
Yeah.
Well, one way or the other, I'm paying $30.
Boogie in theaters March 5th. Coming of age story about Alfred Boogie Chin, a basketball phenom living in Queens, New York, who dreams of playing in the NBA. While his parents pressure him into earning a scholarship to an elite college, Boogie navigates a new girlfriend, on-court rivals, and the burden of expectations. We've all been there, right, Boogie? I thought it was about a guy who picked his nose a lot.
March 3rd, we've got some. March 3rd, we've got some Moxie coming to Netflix. Fed up with the sexist and toxic status quo at her high school, a shy 16-year-old finds inspiration from her mother's rebellious past and anonymously publishes a zine that sparks a school-wide coming-of-age revolution, directed by Amy Poehler. I'm so in on this.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Any recent film or TV recommendations we haven't already talked about? John's going to talk about one here in a second for his streaming recommendation. But did you have anything else, John, you wanted to mention?
You know, I got to say that I've decided to dive back into Psych because I need some good old-fashioned Sean and Gus time. So on Amazon Prime, all of Psych is there, and, you know, it is good.
It is good. Amanda, what about you? Sorry, my allergies are
Shameless.
acting up.
Yeah, Shameless is back. It's like 7 episodes into its final season, and it's pretty good. It's going in a different direction than I thought it would, and wow, it's kind of actually pulling on my heartstrings a little. So you should get caught up or watch it if you've never seen it. It's on Showtime, and you can catch up to the first 10 seasons on Netflix.
My God.
Yeah.
Pass.
No, it's so good, so good.
Okay. I will say, you know what? I'll do mine in a second. John, why don't you do your streaming recommendation real quick?
All right, so
Video on demand.
on Video on Demand, it came out January 1st, and I only just tripped over this last weekend. It's a movie called Shadow in the Cloud, and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz. It's directed by Roseanne Liang and written by Max Landis and Roseanne Liang. And it is an hour, 20-minute movie of some freaking amazing kind of great fun. You've got Chloe Grace Moretz. It's during World War II. She gets her, she kind of like spies her way onto a B-17 bomber. And because this is, of course, 1940s World War II, and she is a supposed female soldier, every guy in the plane treats her like garbage and puts her in the belly gun to keep her out of the way. And you sit in that belly gun with her the entire movie as some weird supernatural things go on, as she has to listen to these guys have conversations and just the amount of treatment they has to go through. It is so tense, so action-packed, and just crazy fun. And the stylized nature of the movie is not like a 1940s movie whatsoever. Or anything that's filmed about the 1940s. It's got this great synthy pop soundtrack to it, and the action just kind of is right there in your face. And it also has this great message about, or I guess it's a message, or maybe it's a theme of it though. This whole idea in which women have to be, whenever they're doing anything, they have to be at least 10% better than men, if not 150% better than men at anything they do, and yet still have to put up with men talking down to them and putting up with just like being turned into some sort of object, but then at the same time be better, stronger, and have more grace about it. And I just really love that aspect of the story.
Preach it, Johnny. Preach it.
But women suck, so that's also that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. All right.
Okay.
It's your
Because
turn.
you've had some bad experiences lately.
Okay. Well, I want to do I saw 2 movies, and I want to recommend them, and I'm sorry I had an allergy fit. So I saw Monster Hunter, which is the Mila Jovovich, Paul W.S. Anderson representation of the game. WS, I am convinced, means what the shit. I don't know what they were going for, but he wrote this with Crayon, I think. The story is idiotic. Ron Perlman's in it in the worst wig you've ever seen in your life. Mila Jovovich is actually still, I mean, she's great. I think she's a fun action hero. It's just the movies.
She's great in everything.
Yeah, she is. The monster designs are great. They're pretty fantastical. I think they're delightful. The movie is none of those things. It's just not great. If you want to, turn your brain off, take it out, kick it down the street, maybe then drive over it, then throw it into a neighbor's yard. That's about Monster Hunter.
And let their dog eat it.
Why not? Why not? You don't need a brain for it. I'm not saying you can't enjoy it, because it can be dumb fun in spots. It's just not a very good movie. And then I saw Nomad Land, which is on Hulu, or it's in theaters. You can go either one. And it's all the rage for best movie of the year, right? It's about a woman who suffers a horrible loss. It's after the Great Recession recent times, and she decides to be a nomad for a while and live in her van and kind of runs into people. Frances McDormand, one of our greatest actors. She's a wonderful actor. Nothing wrong. I think she gives a fantastic performance. She's up there with Carey Mulligan for Best Actress for me. I just think she does a great job. But the movie's so plotting and boring. And I think it's getting a lot of praise just because it features a lot of actors that aren't actors. They're real people who they just fed into this whole film. But I just think it's kind of a boring movie for a big portion of it. And the story is very similar to Land in structure. It's a woman who suffers a horrible loss and then basically goes off to find herself, and a lot of times that means being alone. But Land is so much better. It's so much more compelling. I think the storyline is so much more efficiently told. I just don't get the hype for this one. It's one of those. It's a good character piece. I think it's a good movie. It is not a best picture in any stretch of the imagination. So there you go.
Wow, so both your recommendations are movies that you didn't like that much.
I did not like Nomad Land. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's just in the scope of so many people are saying it is the one to beat for Best Picture. I can't even understand. Just in the last 2 weeks, Judas and the Black Messiah is way better than this. I mean, Land, better than this. So, I mean, I've already got 2 movies in the last 2 weeks that I've seen that is better than this one. So that's not even taking into scope the entire whole year. I'm just saying in the last couple weeks. It's just not the best picture. I just don't see it.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a bummer, but I appreciate the honest review heading into it.
Maybe mileage may vary. Always does. It's on Hulu, so you don't even have to go to a theater and check it out. You can watch it at home. Share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group, on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our site is thehollywoodoutsider.com. And you can find John's artwork on Insta and Twitter and @RJohnDraws, Amanda and Veronica's Marshmallows, and Smirk and at Sync Into This on Twitter, me and the Blacklist Exposed, and presenting Hitchcock and at Aaron Smirks. And speaking of the Blacklist Exposed, we're going to say our parting words with Amanda and John here in a second, because we're going to be joined by Troy Heinrichs, my partner from the Blacklist Exposed, because he just took his son to the Lord of the Rings trilogy in IMAX. And I wanted to get a feel for what it's like to revisit that property 20 years after the release of the original film in IMAX with his son who's never seen it. I just thought that would be kind of a cool thing to talk about. So that's what we're going to go to. But John, Amanda, thank you guys as always for being here.
It's been always a good time.
I guess Amanda does not feel the same.
She just left the room.
Okay. Sounds great. Let's go ahead and lead into Troy Heinrichs and the Lord of the Rings. Okay, guys, and that's going to do it for this episode. If you are on YouTube watching this, just know that you'll have to listen to the podcast, which is available in all your favorite podcast feeds for that. But that's going to do it for this episode. Remember, the next time you head to a theater, buy popcorn.